The first act of sexual reproduction and the human story of sex introduction. Have you ever wondered how life on Earth began its most intimate journey? We often take sexual reproduction for granted. It's everywhere, from the tiniest insects to the largest whales. But when did it all start? Who were the first lovers? And how did sexual behavior evolve in humans? Recent scientific discoveries are shedding light on these questions. According to Australian paleontologist John Long, the very first act of sexual reproduction occurred 385 million years ago. And it didn't happen between humans, mammals, or even reptiles. It happened between prehistoric armored fish called placoderms. From that frigid Scottish loch to the earliest humans wandering the savannas, sex has shaped evolution, survival, and culture. Today, we're going to explore the fascinating history of sexual reproduction, from the first fish to modern humans, and understand why it matters for life as we know it. Life 385 million years ago, the Devonian period. Let's travel back in time, 385 million years. This was the Devonian period, also known as the Age of Fishes. Oceans teemed with life, primitive plants began colonizing land, and the first jawed vertebrates were evolving. In a cold Scottish loch, armored fish called placoderms ruled the waters. These weren't sleek or graceful creatures, they were covered in thick bony plates, making them the tanks of the Devonian seas. Among them, a species called Microbrachius Dicki carried out a behavior that would forever change the course of evolution: sexual reproduction. Meet the placoderms. Placoderms were among the first jawed vertebrates, a group that eventually gave rise to almost all vertebrates, including humans. They were diverse, some small and fast, others huge and lumbering. Their armored bodies and primitive jaws made them look alien, but their behavior was revolutionary. Microbrachius Dicki wasn't just surviving, it was innovating. Fossils show evidence of bony claspers, structures used to transfer sperm to females, indicating internal fertilization. Unlike many fish that release eggs and sperm into the water, these early fish engaged in a precise, physical act of reproduction, a prehistoric dance, that ensured the survival of their species. Why this discovery mattered? Sexual reproduction is one of the cornerstones of evolution. It allows for genetic recombination, producing variation in populations, which is crucial for adaptation and survival. Without it, life as we know it, diverse, resilient, complex, might never have evolved. By studying placoderms, scientists now understand how and when sexual reproduction began in vertebrates. And it reminds us that sex is more than biology, it's an ancient evolutionary strategy that shaped life on Earth. From fish to humans, evolution of sex. After placoderms, sexual reproduction continued to evolve in increasingly complex organisms. Fish evolved into amphibians, reptiles, and eventually mammals. Each step brought innovations. Eggs became fertilized internally, live births emerged, and parental care developed. Humans, as part of the mammalian lineage, inherited these mechanisms. But our story of sex didn't stop at biology. It became intertwined with culture, society, and human experience. Ancient human sexual behavior. Early humans, our hunter-gatherer ancestors, had sexual behaviors closely tied to survival and reproduction. Anthropologists suggest that sexual activity was influenced by environmental pressures, social bonding, and the need to ensure offspring survival. Artifacts and cave paintings suggest that sexuality was both practical and symbolic. Fertility symbols, depictions of sexual acts, and ritualistic representations indicate that sex was not just for reproduction, it was deeply connected to human culture, art, and spirituality. Sex in ancient civilizations. As humans formed communities, sexual norms evolved. In ancient civilizations like Mesopotamia, Egypt, and Greece, sexuality was linked to religion, power, and social structure. In ancient Egypt, sex and fertility were sacred, and gods were associated with creation. In ancient Greece, sexual practices were diverse, from heterosexual pairings to socially recognized same-sex relationships. Philosophy, art, and mythology often celebrated the human body and eroticism. In Rome, sexuality was both personal and political. Marriage, adultery, and prostitution were regulated, while sexual imagery was common in art and architecture. These civilizations reveal that human sexuality is not just biological, it's deeply social and symbolic. The Middle Ages and changing attitudes during the Middle Ages, sexuality was often regulated by religious doctrine. The Christian Church influenced ideas about morality, marriage, and sexual behavior. Sex outside marriage was condemned, but within marriage, it was a duty and a means of procreation. Despite restrictions, sexuality persisted in literature, folklore, and art. Human desire and reproductive behavior could never be fully controlled, showing that sex is a fundamental part of life, transcending laws and norms. The Renaissance and reawakening of sexual expression. The Renaissance brought renewed interest in human anatomy, beauty, and pleasure. Artists like Michelangelo and Botticelli celebrated the human form, and sexuality began to be explored in philosophy, literature, and science. This period also saw the early study of reproduction, anatomy, and sexual behavior, laying the groundwork for modern science. Humans were beginning to understand not only the mechanics of sex but also its role in culture and identity. The scientific revolution and modern understanding. By the 17th and 18th centuries, scientific observation transformed our understanding of reproduction. Researchers studied anatomy, fertilization, and the biology of sex. Sexuality was increasingly seen as a natural, biological phenomenon, rather than just a moral issue. The 19th and 20th centuries brought breakthroughs in genetics, contraception, and sexual health, changing the relationship between sex, reproduction, and society. The human story of sex became not just about survival but about pleasure, identity, and social connection. Sex today. Modern humans have the most complex sexual behaviors in history. Sex is no longer just for reproduction, it's a part of relationships, identity, and expression. Societies now recognize a spectrum of sexual orientations and identities, acknowledging that sexual behavior is multifaceted. But it's fascinating to remember that all this complexity traces back to a small armored fish in a Scottish loch 385 million years ago. Life's most intimate act, sex, began as a simple but revolutionary behavior in the oceans of the Devonian. Lessons from 385 million years of sex. From Microbrachius Dicki to humans, the history of sex teaches us. Innovation drives survival, internal fertilization increased offspring survival, shaping the course of evolution. Variation is vital. Sexual reproduction creates genetic diversity, essential for adaptation. Sex is more than biology. In humans, it became a cornerstone of culture, art, and society. Life finds a way across millions of years. Sex persists as a fundamental force in evolution. Whether it's a prehistoric fish, an ancient Egyptian couple, or modern humans, sex has always been about life, connection, and continuation. Conclusion. So, the next time you think about love, desire, or reproduction, remember Microbrachius Dicki, the humble armored fish that started it all. From the Scottish loch to the rise of human civilizations, sexual reproduction has been the invisible thread connecting all life on Earth. Human history of sex, from cave paintings to modern intimacy, is just another chapter in this extraordinary evolutionary story. The first act of sex was not glamorous, but it set the stage for billions of years of life, innovation, and connection. Sex is more than biology. It's a story of survival, evolution, and culture that began hundreds of millions of years ago and continues to shape our lives today. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the origins of sex, from prehistoric fish to humans, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Share your thoughts in the comments. What fascinates you most about the history of sex?